Hello, and I would like to begin with a question. Have you ever engaged in political discourse with a friend or family member? Has this discourse led to disagreement, maybe even on a more controversial issue? How did this conversation start, and how did you feel, and how did that other person feel when it ended? I'd be willing to bet that both you and the other person left feeling upset, perhaps even angry at the other person, and probably confused, and how they even came to these conclusions, and where did they even get their information from? Well, this is all probably due to political polarization and being fed information by your algorithm on social media platforms. It's important to prevent political polarization by getting out of your algorithm and out of echo chambers. According to EBSCO research article published in 2025, political polarization is the growing ideological divide that a voter has where they move further and further away from moderate viewpoints. Political polarization also replaces an individual's beliefs in many things such as religion, government, economics with their party's beliefs, further polarizing them. Now, polarization can be bad because it can harm our relationships. Think back to the introduction, the question I asked. Did that disagreement cause a strain in your relationship? Maybe even to a more extreme degree. Did you stop contacting them? See, political polarization can harm relationships. Political polarization is also linked to political violence. According to the War Prevention Initiative's study published in 2023, higher levels of political polarization lead to a much more increased likelihood of political violence in a nation. This can be seen in America very recently during the 2024 election and the assassinations in 2025 of Charlie Kirk and Emerita Melissa Hortman and her husband. However, it should be noted, as the researchers say, that politically motivated violence also increases alongside worsening economic conditions. Now, how to prevent polarization? Well, I believe the best way to do that is to try to limit receiving news on social media platforms such as Twitter, X, TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit and the likes by not engaging with politically sensationalist and polarizing content. You can do this by unfollowing, scrolling past quickly, clicking not interested, but do not like or dislike or comment, because this will further drive up the engagement. This will make you further go down the rabbit hole of political polarization. This method is corroborated with a Stanford experiment conducted in 2024 and published in 2025, where they had 1,200 experimentees, where half of them had a tool that pushed politically polarizing content, such as advocations for violence, imprisonment, hindrance of free speech and democracy, down one's Twitter feed. These 600, over 10 days, this experiment happened, and the 600 on average increased 2 points on their agreeability and understanding of their opposing political party. Now, two major obstacles that can get in the way of this is, how do I even know that my feed is politically polarized? Well, you can ask yourself, now this will take critical thinking for misleading information. However, you can ask yourself, what is the agenda of this content? And go back to what I said about the Stanford experiment. Is this content advocating for imprisonment, violence, hindering democracy, or hindering freedom of speech? Those are four big agitators right there. Another obstacle can be, well, if I don't get my news from social media, where should I go? Well, sadly, there is no one all-encompassing, unbiased news source out there, because all human beings are biased, and so are news sources. However, there are websites such as alltimes.com and ground.news that show the political leanings and biases of news sources, and shows the coverage of certain topics, especially in America, on what the right, left, and center are mainly focusing on, what they're covering and what they're not covering. You can look at those to get news and see a more fuller picture on a certain topic. Now, imagine with me a nation that is more understandable and responsive, maybe even acceptive to new ideas, right? Imagine a democratic government that is not impeded and can get legislation passed that can help the nation at large, because both parties are willing to cooperate with one another and not be so polarized. Now, lastly, go back to that introduction. Imagine in this world how that conversation could have gone differently, and how you could have both ended that conversation, perhaps not agreeing, but leaving feeling understanding the other person and feeling dignified. Now, what I'll ask you to do right now, since the algorithm takes some time to adjust without completely just wiping it, which I assume you'd not prefer to do, what I'm calling for you to do right now is go to ground.news and just go check it out. Maybe even look up a topic you are interested in. Like for me, I'm interested in the Russo-Ukraine war, and see what the left, right, and center news sources are covering, what they're not covering on the war. There's also a really nice feature called the blind spot feature, where it shows certain topics that the left is covering, what they're not covering, what the right is covering, what they're not covering, and it's very informative. Thank you all for listening.